wanted to explain in a few short points why I have such strong support for Trump in the case of Zelensky and Ukraine. So let's hit those straight away. Number one is the USA doesn't have to get involved in any of this. Hundreds of millions of pounds, billions of taxpayers' money, US taxpayers' money, has been sent to Ukraine. No one's quite sure where it's gone, who's got it, what it was used for, anything. It's just a relentless sort of sending of funds, and someone had to call that out and either call time on it or find out what it was for, or ideally stop the war. And Trump said as part of his campaign he would end the war between Ukraine and Russia on day one. Well, we're not on day one, but he's being very true to that campaign pledge that he made. He's trying to get to peace on behalf of all of those involved in the fighting, but more specifically on behalf of the US taxpayer who's actually been funding this thing. The second point, people speak about bravery. This is particularly a European and a British perspective. British people have been sold the idea, oh, isn't Zelensky brave? Oh, look at him in his camo gear. Oh, look at him on the front line. This is him in his bunker. Isn't he brave fighting alongside his troops? I will just call out Trump's bravery kind of gets rode roughshod over in the UK because there's just mocking or putting down by the mainstream media. Trump has been hunted for 8 years, if not more. He was denied an election, which somebody like me would say he absolutely won in 2020. His family have been utterly persecuted. He's had a mugshot taken. He's been hauled in front of the courts under trumped-up charges. He was assassinated and just barely dodged a bullet. And that happened twice, and yet he's still alive. So I understand this thing you've been sold about Zelensky and his bravery because you've seen him dressed in boots and camo gear. But I would argue Trump and his family have been extremely brave to have the tenacity to still be around to be president right now. After the 8 years he had, you'd think he'd run a million miles, hole up in Mar-a-Lago and simply play golf. Instead, he's choosing to be the president. I think that's very brave indeed. The next thing is the accusation of bullying. Oh, well, he acted like a bully. Oh, he was a bully. Did you not see J.D. Vance and Trump? Did you not think they bullied? Can I just say, without apology, it's not a bloody meeting of middle managers at some large public sector organisation. It's not a sort of NHS middle manager meeting where you're supposed to follow the agenda and be polite and listen to Fat Brenda from HR and then bring in someone from accounts to have their perspective and someone adjudicates the meeting very politely. It's not a bloody, oh, ambassador with these Ferrero Rocher, you're really spoiling us. This is a moment of trying to end a war and stop World War III. So if things got a little bit pointed during the meeting, which if you've seen the whole clip, you'll understand better that it wasn't the way that it's been presented to European and British audiences. But I don't even care if it was bullying. If bullying gets her to the point of peace with Ukraine and can stop having taxpayers' cash and my taxpayers' cash sent to Ukraine, I personally think that's a price worth paying. I think it's important, and I think people should stop acting like they're delicate little wallflowers. I thought 1 minute ago you told me Zelensky was very brave and he's in camo and he could fight the good fight. Well, is he really bothered about being bullied a little bit by 2 other men? I doubt it very much indeed. I also wanted to talk about choosing your monster. So people say, oh, well, Trump bullied. Oh, J.D. Vance bullied. Can we stop acting like, this is a lineup of the best negotiators of all time, or, some kind of, oh, how do we all play nicely in the sandpit? Politics is about choosing the least worst option. You have to choose your monsters. Politics is a slippery game. Trump's supposed to be dead. So you can say, well, there was some bullying. Yeah, sure there was. There's some terrible, terrible dark deeds that happen in politics. But that is politics. Politics is neither pleasant nor nice, and the people in it aren't particularly nice to get where they get to. So I don't know why we're trying to have this moment of outrage over Trump's behaviour when you look around at the behaviour of our own politicians. Do you really think any of them are any better? Do you think any of them wouldn't knife someone in the eyeball or the back? Look at Ed Miliband and David Miliband. Fratricide right there. And you want to call out Trump over the other side of the pond for some bullying. I just think you need some perspective. I would also say there was a choice that was made at the last election, and that was between Trump and Kamala. So when you say, oh, there was bullying, well, sure, but okay, your option wasn't that, or, you know, some sort of UN peace negotiator, although I'd argue the United Nothings is worse than useless and their peace negotiator would be utterly futile in any situation. But what I'm trying to say is, what would you prefer? Would you prefer Trump or Kamala? Because that was actually the choice. So you may say, oh, Trump went a bit heavy-handed there. Do you think Kamala would have done a better job? Or do you think she would have come up with some word salad about nothing in particular that made no sense to anyone? Talk about the fact that she's a proud Afro-American, Indian, Asian woman of colour. And no one would have got anywhere. It would still be billions of cash going to Ukraine. The situation would be the same. And in 6 years' time, we'd be exactly where we were. People have accused me as well. This is the point. And I'm not trying to be defensive here. I'm trying to be rational and coherent. People say, oh, well, Katie, typical you. You would be brown-nosing Trump because it suits you. It's convenient for you to be brown-nosing Trump. Well, of course you pick Trump's side because it's better for you to be on Trump's side. I just want to say, I've been supporting Trump since before 2016 when I knew he would win and went on CNN to call them the Clinton News Network to their face, ensuring I would never be booked on the show again, telling them that Trump would win. I have campaigned across America for 5 years for Trump for 2020, which I also believe he won. And indeed, I've been supporting him through 2024, but none of that's something to do with how that's going to read for me. Or, of course, I'd support Trump. This is a long-term thing, and it has very little to do with Trump at all. People often say, have I met him? Have I talked to him? I'm not that bothered about doing that. Because the thing that really, really matters to me, the thing that calls to my heart, in the same way that ordinary British people call to my heart, whoever they are, whatever they vote for. I want them to be happy. I want them to be free. I want them to earn their money, to hold their money, to have money to spare, to do fun things. I want their family to be happy. That's MAGA. And that's the reason I'm so supportive. It's not really to do with Trump or JD Vance. It's to do with MAGA and ordinary, decent Americans who want their country to be as great as it should be. And without wishing to quote the old Make America Great Again, that is what Trump is trying to do. Now, that is a foreign concept to people for the EU. It's a foreign concept for British people. It's why I believe so many people are struggling with this. We're not used to a leader who is actively fighting for his people instead of managed decline, which is all we know and is all we've known for 20 years, if not more, here in the UK. And I think finally there's just touching on that last thing that I spoke to before, which is that when you've been sold a lie, it is far more comfortable to continue to hold on to the lie, even if that starts to get quite strained. You still want to hold on to the lie because it is more comfortable to stay with the lie than it is to make the leap of being able to face reality. And the reality is that Trump will get Zelensky to move toward peace. By cutting off the supply of weapons, he will force Zelensky's hand to move towards peace. The deal will be signed. The UK and France can put their boots on the ground if they want. JD Vance certainly wasn't talking about the UK and France when he spoke to some country that hasn't fought a war. Clearly we fought alongside the US for decades. But Trump will bring about peace in Ukraine with Russia, just as he promised on his campaign trail. And the most important thing of all is that ordinary Americans finally have a leader that's doing exactly what he said he would do. And perhaps instead of criticising him or even levelling accusations at me, perhaps we should be demanding the same of political leaders here in the UK. Wouldn't it be great if we had a Prime Minister who stood up for ordinary, decent British taxpayers? I hope that helps explain a few things.